What's up, Thumpers? Welcome back to episode Happy Heroes here. Go! We're doing a review of the Joker. I'm so tired.
Yeah, Adam, you've had a long, busy day.
It's been a long day. It's been a lot of fun, but I'm super excited
You were
to be here.
live streaming like a mofo.
I did. I live streamed for 2 hours. I did a fun little tour of South Pasadena. For where all the Halloween locations are.
P-Town.
I think we're probably going to end up doing some sort of a cut down for YouTube.
Can we officially call you one of the experts on Halloween? Like,
Yeah,
I don't
I
think
do.
there's anybody
I feel
else.
like that's pressure.
I don't really feel like there's anybody else giving that kind of information, though.
Yeah, that's been the one fun thing about the whole thing is like
Right.
I really got to a lot of that stuff I already knew, but it forced me to go even deeper and feel like, okay, what are other facts that maybe I didn't know, or things like,
Dude, if it's stuff you didn't know, come on.
No kidding.
That's like you're digging into the archives.
yeah, it was really fun though. We got to go check out the Sugarman Gallery, which is really, really cool. It's right where the Myers house is. They do fun screenings. It's really decked out.
Yeah.
I would love for us to go there and do a screening.
That would be awesome.
The next exhibit they're having, the owner, she tries to keep it sort of themed to like Halloween or like
Right.
witchcraft wizardry. So the next exhibit is a Harry Potter one.
Ooh,
that's cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
Okay.
she does a lot of screenings there and stuff. So it was really cool. I liked it. And I got to hang out with Lucas for 2 hours. Who doesn't?
Oh, you were hanging with Lucas?
Yeah, Lucas was running the camera and
I
just
mean,
like
best.
shooting the shit
That's
with
just
me.
a magical time right there.
It was.
I
Also,
love him. I love that man.
Oh, me too. I would marry him
yeah. I would
and take
too.
him to Europe.
Yeah.
Sometimes I look at him and I go, I curse the fact that I'm not gay. And that neither is Lucas. Because we would be so happy together.
It would be so
But we
happy.
just have to settle for like
You know how much bread you guys would eat?
hetero friends.
It would just be magic time
I know,
all the
man.
time if you guys were around.
Well, Lucas is not here.
He's the best.
to have any input on this.
He'll be by later. We'll tell him.
I know
about
he
it.
will be. He will be. A lot of people were asking us. Some
course,
aggressively about the Joker
Of
review.
course, yeah.
And we had mentioned a
Why
few
not?
times that we were going to do it, but you were at New York Comic Con
Right.
for 1 week, so we thought, well, let's wait
Opening
for
weekend.
Hector, opening weekend.
Opening weekend.
Following weekend, you got married.
I got married.
Congratulations
Right, thank
again.
you.
We put
Thank
out a
you.
video. We said 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
Nobody watched it.
Yeah, nobody watched it, I guess. I don't know. So we are doing a review for the Joker, but before we get into that, I want to let you guys know that we do have a Patreon. You can become a Hyper Homie, patreon.com/HyperRPG. And we're doing the Titans podcast. We're still chugging along with that thing. We're going to do a new episode tonight. We're dropping stuff early on there and trying to do more exclusive stuff.
We got movie
Right.
commentaries.
Yeah, we're doing 2 tonight. Scott Pilgrim, and I believe the winner is Coco.
Coco.
I'm actually really excited to rewatch Coco.
I'm
really
excited
excited.
to rewatch it with you guys.
Yeah,
because
I'm
we've
excited.
never seen it together.
No, we haven't.
We haven't?
Yeah.
No, remember I threw that candy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
I lost my
He lost
honorary
his Mexican.
Mexicanness.
I'm gonna
You check to
cry.
me, mother effer. That's what Hector said.
Great.
I'm gonna cry tonight.
Oh, we're all gonna cry.
No, it's gonna be a fun time. So we're doing a lot of stuff on Patreon. We got some stuff coming soon. I'm just gonna go ahead and announce this because I'm gonna do it no matter what. I will be doing a podcast for The Mandalorian on Disney
Oh
Plus.
my God!
Damn, son.
And
Can I be a
Damn,
part
son.
of that?
oh yeah,
Oh my God! On the
son.
Patreon?
yeah,
It's gonna be good.
I might have to
Real
jump on
good.
him that one
Ooh,
time.
it's gonna be a party. We're also looking at a lot of ways to streamline stuff, and I know this is a movie review, but I feel like I just need to get this out of the way because we are doing a review in place of an episode.
Yes.
But we're doing a lot of streamlining here, and hopefully we'll be able to get edits out a lot quicker for a lot of things. We have a brand new podcast set up, so I'm really excited looking forward to doing more stuff and more time efficient and all that sort of stuff. I think it'll be a really good time.
Yeah, I think it's really good. And this is the first time we start recording and actually hear our intro. That actually pumped me up a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
good
been a
to go.
while.
I'm good to go.
Yeah, it's been a while. I remember we used to have it set up like that when we were downstairs.
Yeah.
And it's been about 10 months since we've had that set
It's
up.
been a long time.
And it feels
We've-
kind of nice.
We've officially been here at Hyper for 3 years.
I know.
Whoa! Seriously?
Yes, 3 years.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy.
So we're like on our 6th year of doing YouTube
I think we're
stuff?
senior citizens at this point.
At this point, yeah.
Hyper's senior citizens is
yeah,
what our
I
show's going to
think we're.
be.
Yeah, I think we are.
He's counting. He's
I'm like,
I don't
that's-
believe you.
I don't have enough fingers for that.
That's like 4.5 babies.
How
I don't know
many?
how many?
How many is this many?
How many kids is
many.
that?
Many.
This many years.
So funny.
All right.
Okay, shall we get into this review?
How are we going to attack
do
this
it.
review? Should we attack
At this point,
what
the
we
movie's
like, what we don't like?
So I will say the movie's been out for 3 weeks.
Right.
This will be filled with spoilers,
All spoilers,
obviously.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, on top of that, I personally don't really feel like there's too much that could be spoiled, except for like 1 or 2 bigger things. But
There's definitely some movie specific twists
Yes.
that I
Yes.
want
Right,
to discuss.
right.
For sure, for sure,
that
for sure.
even if you know, like, oh, this is a movie about how the Joker becomes the Joker, and
Right.
then I know Joker and Batman, so it is prequel
Yes.
in a way, so it's
Right.
like everybody kind of knows how the movie will end. Sort
Yeah,
I don't know,
yeah,
but
absolutely. But
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
to say this is a spoiler review.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
We will be talking in depth.
Yeah, and in terms of how we want to break it down, I'm pretty cool with tackling things that we liked about it first.
Okay.
Yeah.
No particular order, whether you want to address
Okay.
the acting, the
Okay.
cinematography, whatever you want to do.
I
I say
think-
we just go down one at a time.
Let's do it. Everybody is so right when everybody has been. I think it's kind of been a unanimous thing. That's what I like about talking about this movie is that right out the gate, everybody, whether they dislike the movie, like the movie, love the movie, hate the film, have been saying Joaquin Phoenix is incredible. And
there's no
agreed.
doubting that.
There's no doubt.
Yeah.
It is a mesmerizing performance. He does such a great job.
Right.
The cinematography, great. The set
Yes.
design,
Fantastic.
beautiful. When you model it after those kinds of movies that it's drawing inspiration from, the Scorsese films, King of Comedy, Taxi Driver, it looks great.
Yep.
It's great. The city, great. Everything great. Costuming, great. The score is amazing.
Except for one moment.
Oh, but that's soundtrack,
Okay.
not
Okay.
score.
Okay. Yes.
Easy,
yes.
easy.
I would agree,
Yeah.
and that's like an editing. That choice is weird.
That's a
we'll talk
gray
about
area.
that.
That's a
we'll
gray
talk about
area.
that. But the score, who I believe the score is by, I'm just going to look it up. It's
I
by
don't know how to
a
pronounce her last name, but I know her first name is Hildur.
Hildur, and she was
I believe she's Norwegian.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Swedish.
Let me look this up. Let me look
yeah,
this up.
I don't remember. I don't know.
Hildur Guðnadóttir, Icelandic music and
from
musician
Iceland.
and composer. And Guðnadóttir, I see daughter, and I'm like, that's the same as Hela. Hela's last name is Odin's daughter. Like Thor Odinson, right? Odin's daughter. That's,
Oh
it's
my
cool.
God.
So Hildur, that's pretty cool. But she did that score is like it's like so good because every time the movie wants you to be uncomfortable,
Yeah.
that score just
Right.
swoops in and you're just like,
Right.
oh my God. And it's an incredible score.
Yeah.
What else? That's what I got for now. That's what I got.
Go for
but
it,
I'm
Adam.
saying
Go
all of
for
those
it.
things. I feel like
Sure.
everybody unanimously has been like,
Right.
yes,
Right.
all of this stuff is stellar. It's really
as,
great.
as far as movie production goes, it's a very well produced movie.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a fan of Joaquin Phoenix's work for, not just me. I'm not exclusive. A lot of people really love Joaquin Phoenix. And it is true. He is probably one of the best actors we have working today.
Right.
And I was a little apprehensive about this movie when it was first announced. I'm sure there's a video somewhere that someone has clipped probably to use as blackmail against me that I wasn't excited about this movie. But I was excited about Joaquin Phoenix because I think he's a really good actor. And after I saw You Were Never Really Here, it really made me realize what he could bring to that role as that type of actor. Because
Right.
it's not always that we see him just being exclusively evil, but there's also a lot of roles where he's not. Where he's also not, I don't want to say heroic, but he's just like a regular guy.
Okay.
So I knew there'd be a lot of depths and layers to the character, which I think, if you're going to tackle the Joker, you kind of have to have that. You have to have, peaks and valleys and all that sort of
Right.
stuff. And I think Joaquin would have done a great job. I was apprehensive about the director as well, but the thing that I really, really like, and it's a lot of the stuff that Hector mentioned, I think the cinematography is really damn good.
Stellar.
And it does a fantastic job of capturing that late 70s, early 80s vibe. The movie takes place in 1981. I think it
Right.
does an excellent job capturing that feeling. And for a movie that's shot digitally, I think it does a really good job of kind of emulating the look of film.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And they do I don't know how much like filtering and layering was done with grain and all that sort of stuff, but they do just like, and I think a lot of it also comes down to the color correcting.
Yep.
It just looks like it very much fits into that time and that era, and I think
Right.
because of that, it really sells the fact that it's a movie set in 1981. The score, same thing. It's incredible score, production design, costume design, and I would even say Joaquin Phoenix is great. And I also think that a lot of the people around him are also great too.
absolutely.
Like I don't
agree,
think I don't think anyone put in a bad performance.
Correct.
I think all the performances are great.
Even from like the really like minor parts,
Yeah.
there's still fantastic actors that come
absolutely.
Yeah,
in. That's
yeah.
a great job.
I mean, De Niro doesn't have that big of a role, but like
he's
the
great.
way he performs. I mean, it's De Niro, so you kind of expect it to
The
be
actor
firing
who
on all
plays,
cylinders.
You buy him as a late night host.
Agreed.
Right.
The actor who plays Thomas Wayne.
Yes.
I was
Right.
like, you're doing such a great job.
Brett Cullen,
There
who
we
was
go.
in The Dark Knight Rises.
Right.
Who did he play in that?
He was one of the other politicians. Senator?
I thought he looked
was a
familiar.
senator.
I thought he
No.
looked
He was
familiar.
either
Yeah,
senator
yeah,
or
yeah.
mayor or something.
Man, I
can't
gotta
remember.
rewatch The Dark Knight Rises. The
know,
whole trilogy.
Also,
Same.
Arthur's mom does a really
Yeah.
good job.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They're all,
Yeah.
they're all
Zazie
great.
Beetz.
Yeah, Zazie Beetz is amazing.
All the
everybody,
supporting
everybody,
characters. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think like those are my biggest takeaways when the movie ended was, oh, technically, this is a very well-made film.
Absolutely.
Like, I like all the technical elements of it.
It's so much so that I wish that as I was watching it and when I got out, I was also like, man, I wish other movies based on comic books looked this good.
Yeah.
Looked this good. It's frustrating.
This is what I wanted Watchmen to look like.
Yeah.
Like, imagine Watchmen getting this vibe. Would have been amazing.
And instead, with the Watchmen movie, now I don't know if y'all have seen the show yet.
I did see episode 1.
Looks good.
The show looks great.
I like it. Papa likey, that show. But the Watchmen movie, I think, because it was a comic book, I think there was a lot of purposeful choices made to be like, this has to be
Absolutely.
stylized.
Right,
and of
right,
course,
right.
that's a director, and that's that whole take. But I agree with you. I look at this and I go, why is it that, and I'm getting some of that Warner Brothers jealousy. I'm getting jealous when my babies, which are DC characters, aren't as well treated as the other projects.
Right.
Which are like the Harry Potter movies or any other movies that Warner Brothers will do. Well, they'll consider
Those
that
other big franchises.
They consider those the real movies.
Yeah.
And then I get Green Lantern with Ryan Reynolds. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I get like Justice League, and I get like those kinds of projects. I get frustrated because I go, for whatever reason, this project and everybody involved had the prestige to be like, well, we're going to treat this very seriously. And I'm like, just do that with also Aquaman. Just do that with also Shazam.
You can do that with other projects.
And not just at stuff at Warner Brothers either, but just across the board at every studio. Like, I wish every superhero movie was this cared for when it came to the look of it.
The visuals.
You know?
I agree.
Part of me also wonders if that has something to do with the budget, because it's such a reduced budget.
Yeah.
They really have to, there's not, as far as I think and I know, based on what I've read, there is CG in the movie, but it's done at such a minimum, and I think that really sort of makes the movie feel a lot more real.
So is this like a reliance on CG versus, not having to rely on it conversation? Is that what that is?
No,
that, like,
I think it's a budgetary thing.
It's a budgetary thing because it's like if a superhero movie or like a Star Wars prequel that George Lucas shot in the early 2000s has a lot of green screen and a heavy reliance on CG elements, is it just never going to be able to look as good as a Joker? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that the conversation?
I also think a lot of it has to do with what you're talking about, the layering of. So, to me, the CG parts really stood out, which were mostly the bus scenes. When he was like putting his head up against the bus, I could clearly tell that was not a real bus. Like to me, just because I was kind of looking for, not necessarily looking for that, but I was like, look at that bus. It's a little too spot on for the era. Like, it's good, and that could have existed in the 80s only. I don't think they could have gotten a bus from that era and had it look that pristine, because they would already be far too gone if nobody was taking care of them the way nobody was taking care of them back then. So I was like, okay, cool. There's some CG stuff there, and I didn't mind any of that stuff because it was so minimal. There was I think there's a lot of background stuff that they used it on, but mostly it felt very practical. It felt very real, and it felt the look of the film felt very much like another character in the movie as well. Like, it was just, it felt like this oppressiveness on Arthur Fleck. Like, just the whole city itself felt like there was nothing warm, nothing kind about it, and that just added to the whole vibe of the movie. Yeah. I don't disagree with anything you guys have said about the actors or anything like that. I think at the end of the day, because I have nitpicks about the movie, but I also came away with things that I think they did well.
Yeah.
And one thing that I think this movie did well, aside from other Batman Joker properties that I've seen before, is to show the environment where somebody like Joker could have come up.
I agree.
I'm going to step aside from all the political and all that other stuff, and I really like that they showed a Gotham that was burning. We always hear like, oh, Gotham is burning, and Gotham is a place for heathens and all this stuff.
And then it's in a movie, and you're like, that seems kind of normal.
All we see is Bruce Wayne and his billionaire friends. You're just like, oh, what's so bad about Gotham? Like, they're driving around like it's no big deal.
Yeah.
You know?
I think Tim Burton's Batman is the last one that really did a pretty good job of being like, oh, this city is kind of messed up.
Yeah, but we don't get to see it to like its fullest extent. Like, we don't get to see the subway system anywhere else. We don't get to see the streets where people are working and striving to live every day. And that's one thing that really stuck out to me, is that if the Joker was going to come around and if we had to have an origin story this way, of course there had to be an environment to kind of make that happen. And I feel like this version of Gotham City, even though it's kind of different in other things that we've known, tells a good story of that particular environment in which Arthur Fleck could do something like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of not my biggest takeaway, but one thing that I really appreciated that this movie did differently from all the other movies that I've seen so far.
I think that's one of the reasons, and I totally agree 100%, is that you feel that city and it just feels that comic book Gotham where you go, this is bad.
Yeah,
Feels like unlimited amounts of weights just like pulling you down.
And to tie into that, I love their portrayal of Thomas Wayne.
Absolutely.
I'm not opposed to that. I think it was very interesting, a very interesting choice. However, all of that stuff just leads to, well, we're going to see the origin at the end, which I know a lot of people that were like, man, I wish that wasn't in there.
I do too.
Because it feels too tacked on, crammed in there.
It's like a big wink.
It's like they were like, oh, wait, I forgot.
So,
throw him in there. Throw him in there.
For me, this is what it boils down to. I really wanted to love this movie.
Yeah.
And my takeaway was that the movie was kind of fighting with itself.
Absolutely.
With it trying to be its own independent story and maybe a new take on this character and trying to say something interesting about wealth inequality, about mental illness, and then having to revert back to, well, he's going to have a laughing disease because it's the Joker. Get it? Wink.
Wink.
And he's going to have a clown job because it's the Joker. Get wink. And Thomas Wayne, and you're going to see Alfred, and you're going to see baby Bruce Wayne.
And you're going to see the pearl necklace get ripped, and you're going to see all...
That part especially was like,
on.
I know a lot of people that were like, look, man, have the riots at the end of the film and have them, and this is one of my favorite parts of the movie, is that the night that Bruce's parents get shot, they are at the theater, but why do they go through Crime Alley? Why do they go through it? Because there's a riot. And I went, oh, that's great. I like that idea.
It's a great interpretation.
But just cut away. We know, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we had to hear it, and then we still see him.
And then they stay on it for a while.
All of that to me, all of that to me tells me, I know some people that are like, well, the night that the Joker becomes Joker is also the night that Hope is born. And I'm like, this movie's not a Batman movie.
No.
Yeah,
and it tries very hard to say, hey, we're not a Batman movie, but at the end, it reverts right back to it.
It sucks because it pulls so much attention away from what just happened.
And my biggest frustration to that is, well, I two separate things I want to talk about, but just really quickly about the Batman thing. And I know there's so many millions and millions of Batman fans around the world that are going to bat for this movie. It's now the highest grossing rated R movie ever, which is incredible. I hope that all of the lessons learned from this movie are just like every success story. Just like when Deadpool was the highest grossing, we're all like, okay, Hollywood, please learn the right lessons from this and not necessarily the wrong ones. You can't just force this into every formula. But in terms of the Batman thing, anytime there was actually any reference of Batman, mention of Batman, we see Bruce at the end. It to me, it completely undoes the whole movie.
Yeah,
because if you follow that through to its logical conclusion, and try to step back from you being a Batman fan and going, no, but it's so cool that a story like this could be told in this world and it's still Batman, it's still fitting. I don't think it is Batman anymore because even with the age difference, let's say, how old is Arthur Fleck in this movie? 40?
They say
35?
They say 30. 30s.
He's 30s.
30,
so
I think like between 31 and 34.
31 and 34. We're gonna be real easy. We'll say 35. Okay. He's 35 years old in this movie, and he's been through the ringer, but he's 35. Okay. And let's say Bruce is what? What's the oldest we can put him at?
12.
10, 12?
Oldest 12.
Let's do that math. Let's do that math. Let's say that Bruce Wayne becomes Batman at 22. Okay? So he's now 22 years old. It's 10 years later. It's maybe 12 years later. So Arthur Fleck is how old? He's going from 34. He's 45.
Yeah, 34, 35.
44
sorry.
is the mathematics is math.
Math is hard.
You had a long day, buddy. But me too. That's why I'm talking all this out loud because I'm not trying to do this equation.
10 years later, 45,
Simple arithmetic.
Simple math.
So he's 45
Where's
going on 50.
Right.
And here comes a 22-year-old, 6'3", 225-pound,
master
jacked
martial artist,
billionaire,
best detective in the world,
who shows up, and Arthur Fleck, being who Arthur Fleck is in this movie, / Joker, sure, whatever, this Batman starts beating the shit out of this guy.
Oh, it would be 2 hits and done. 2 pump chunk.
But not just that, but even him laying a hand on this guy, him laying one hand on this guy, I'm like, stop. Arthur needs help. He's needed help this whole time. However you feel about it, whether you're like, no, Arthur has completely embraced his destiny as the Joker. He's decided to kill people. He somehow keeps getting, again, with the reality of this world, not comic book logic, keeps getting out and in of Arkham Asylum maybe in the future, because he's insane, but he keeps straight up killing people. He's killing psychiatrists. He's killing whatever. And that's going to justify Bruce Wayne coming over and beating him up. And putting him back in Arkham. Did this little kid Bruce Wayne learn no lessons from his family, from the night that his parents were killed, and from the city that he lives in? You know, did this Joker, like, this Joker to me, up to this point, again, you follow that Batman through its logical conclusion, and it's an anti-Batman film. It becomes a story where it's like Batman, this, again, 22-year-old, 25-year-old, 30-year-old beating up on a 50-year-old, 55-year-old, 60-year-old.
Like
mental illness is wrong to do so. That is not okay. And we've seen the circumstances for how Arthur became Arthur. And it's a combination of his upbringing, combination of his lack of health care, a combination of him thinking wrongly that society has wronged him, and his feelings against women, his mother, Zazie Beetz' character, who he most likely kills. Like these kinds of things that you're sort of like, wait, he has no philosophy. The Joker in this movie he specifically says, I don't believe in any of that stuff. So he's just been kind of going along for that. He doesn't inspire the riot himself. He accidentally inspires it. Because people misinterpret what he is and what he did. And all of this get to a point where a guy in a bat suit is punching his teeth out. I'm like, that doesn't work.
It doesn't work at all, no.
Now looking outside of this film, if Batman and the Joker on more of an even level, that's the only way that works.
Absolutely.
So that's my little sidebar, like frustration with their inclusion of Batman at all.
But I don't even think that's a sidebar. I think that's like a really kind of a big, and
because like I said, it goes back to this movie struggles with itself.
Yeah,
it's trying to be this, but also trying to pay homage to the fandom. And I'm like, you're not doing that, because on the one hand, your movie is about how if only people were nicer to this guy, he wouldn't have killed. And the proof of that is that he didn't kill the little person friend of his. And I'm thinking, with my comic book brain, I'm going, you know what, though? But if this was the Joker would have killed him too.
Absolutely.
And I'm not supposed to be thinking that within the framework of this movie, which is fine. But then again, the movie wants me to be at the end, be like, but he's Joker.
But then the movie forces you to think that, because they put Batman in the very traditional way that his parents died. Like,
yes.
It'd be different if it was a completely different take on how he becomes Batman.
Exactly.
Then I'm like, okay, cool. Then I can separate it out.
If they would have done Bruce Wayne being killed, and then they do the whole other setup, the whole Flashpoint setup.
Any number of things. And the very end of this film is that he's back in Arkham, or Arkham for the first time. And I forget if he was there earlier. And the woman literally says, "What's so funny?" as a way to sort of prod at him, one last little turn in the screw. And then he sort of puts out his cigarette, and then he walks out, and he has apparently killed this woman because his footsteps are blood. And it's like, okay, so this movie's telling me that this Joker is within his right mind, and that this Joker has embraced like the Joker character of the comic book. Then it's like, well, then the struggle is, where did that sort of philosophy come from? He is not opposed to tearing down the rich. He only has you made it a personal vendetta against this one dude. He does not have enough. He's too naive in this world. He is like a child. He has the intelligence, and he has been sort of damaged in a way where...
The emotional capacity of a child.
Correct. Yes. And not somebody who is a manipulator.
A mastermind.
Which is what this character normally is. And that is how this character, again, outside of this movie, but in comic book pop culture, they've been able to justify how this character can just continue to go, is that he is a manipulator. How does he go into Arkham and get out? Manipulated people. How did Harley Quinn happen? Manipulated her.
Brainwash.
And this Arthur character does not manipulate anyone.
No. I don't think he has the emotional or the mental capacity to be able to. And to set up something like Heath Ledger's Joker did with the two boats and the explosions, I'm like, I don't think Arthur Fleck would have the capacity to do that. Not only just like mentally, but also physically. This guy doesn't feel like that kind of Joker. That kind of Joker, Heath Ledger's Joker, or the traditional comic book Joker, and I've said this 1,000 times, is the embodiment of chaos.
Correct.
But it's a very organized and planned out chaos. Arthur Fleck is not an organized and planned out guy.
It's chaos with like a moleskin notepad.
Yes, exactly. He's like,
moleskin book.
Oh, this is a perfect accent on this chaos. Like, perfect over here and over there.
That's true.
Yeah, so this movie does really fight with itself in that sense, and they really took me out of the movie in that moment. I think that's my biggest gripe with the movie itself, that it just felt super forced. It didn't feel natural. It felt just like a tacked on kind of like, cool, just to remind you, this is a Batman movie as well.
It almost kind of felt like it was something that, and I have no clue if this is true, so I don't know. It feels like almost something that they did an edit of the movie. They had everything that they had, and then at the end, the studio or someone was like, maybe we should show the Waynes being murdered. And it's kind of like
one more time.
I completely agree with you though, and I don't think that's a sideline. I think that's like a really crucial central issue with the movie for me as well. Because the second I walked out of it, I was like, this Joker could never take on Batman.
No,
Batman would crush him in one, unless he's Adam West Batman.
Right,
he'd be crushed in one punch.
I would love to see that.
Right, he'd be crushed. He would be crushed in one punch, and then exactly what you were saying. Now we have this vigilante who is stopping crime, but he's really beating down someone who
needs help,
who is struggling and who's going through he
just
really
turns
has some
Batman into a bully.
Yeah,
At
exactly.
That point, you turn Batman into a bully.
I think also another thing that the point where the movie kind of like lost me a little bit was when he is writing stuff into his notes and he can't spell.
Yes.
And to me, it goes back to the conversation of like Joker is a mastermind, agent of chaos, very particular, very smart, very logical.
Right.
I agree. I don't think that Arthur Fleck could come up with the sort of tricks that the Joker traditionally comes up with.
Yeah.
For me, if you simply remove the birth of Batman element, even if you just kept Thomas Wayne, I'd be totally fine with that.
Yeah.
I would get rid of Bruce and get rid of the murder of the Wayne family, and everything works. And I could be like, well, who knows what would happen in the future?
Yeah.
That's why when they're like, we're not going to do a sequel, I'm like, I'm kind of glad because I would hate for them to be like, we're going to bring Batman into it. Like,
no, thank you.
I agree. I think that I don't know. I don't know what the sort of decision making was for that, but I feel that the promise of this movie in the beginning was like, hey, we're very, very different. It is an Elseworlds. It's an alternate universe.
Yeah.
And I would have been really satisfied, frankly, if this had a definitive ending where it's like maybe he does shoot himself in the face, shoot himself in the head on Maury's show.
Right.
Maybe he does do that at the end after he shoots Maury in the head, whatever. Like just to be able to go, there's no way this can be sequelized. We don't want to leave the audience even thinking about, how does this tie into any just to squash that because so much of this. I mean, when you mentioned the Notebook thing, it reminded me of it. This movie to me feels like it's a lot of stuff, and I am by no means an expert. But I saw some of my friends talking about their dealings with their personal experience with like mental illness or loved ones or friends and family that they have, and how this movie like stigmatizes it and doesn't really try to shine any specifics on it, and it's very sort of surface level. Like he's mentally ill, he's crazy.
It does a lot of that. There's like 5 very like surface level things that it puts out there, but doesn't really resolve any.
One of those things being like the delusions and hallucinations, and it's like, okay, well, what is it? What does this have to do with the story? Other than just. I want to get to this other point in a second, but the Notebook thing reminds me of like the scene in MacGruber. Have you guys seen MacGruber?
Yes, I have seen MacGruber.
You've seen MacGruber. You haven't yet, but like MacGruber, who is a cartoon character, gets mad because this guy goes like, "Nice car, dipshit," or whatever as he drives away, and MacGruber goes, "Oh, fuck you, buddy," and then like reads his license plate, KFBR 392, KFBR 392.
Yeah.
And then 30 minutes later in the movie, one of the other characters finds like a notepad that MacGruber has, and he flips open, and it says KFBR 392 over and over and over again on each page as this comedic example of like he's lost it. He's like Jack Nicholson in The Shine, and he's drawing himself pooping on the guy, and he's all these crude drawings, and it's like, to me, it's become such a sort of staple of like movie versions of this person is crazy,
With
mentally ill.
Yeah.
And that coupled with like the hallucination aspect of it to me felt kind of like an unearned twist, like a twisty thing. And I sort of felt like because this is how the order of events happens. That happens to me the first time when he imagines himself on the Maury show.
Yep.
Remember that? And it's clearly a delusion.
Absolutely.
And it's this sad little vignette, and I like that scene a lot, and I'm like, that's pathetic. This is great. Cool. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
And then later, after he accidentally but then purposefully kills the Wall Street guys, and then goes home after he like dances in the bathroom because he feels liberated, which is again a very, up to that point I'm like, this character is not within his right mind. He accidentally drops a gun at a children's hospital.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
This is a guy who shouldn't have a gun. Not somebody who once he kills, then he's freed. I'm like, that's an ugly message. And if that's what the message is, it could have been a character who is smart the whole time. A Hannibal Lecter.
He didn't have to have a mental illness,
So then he goes home and then just knocks on Zazie Beetz' door and just kisses her.
Makes out with her.
At that moment, I was like, well, this isn't real. Because earlier we saw hallucination. And sure enough, then he invites her to the stand-up. and we see her kind of smile a little bit, and then she's there in the
She's
hospital.
the only one being entertained by his stand-up.
With his mom, but then
Yeah.
she leaves the room before Arthur Fleck can see something important on the TV with his own video.
Right. Yeah.
And then later they revealed she was never there. And I was like, at the movie, I'm like, yes, I know. She was never there.
Right.
Not only that, they also don't build that character up at all.
No.
So even when that twist happens, I'm like, well, you didn't make me care about her, so why would I care that this
exactly.
is a big twist?
It's something that felt to me like, and maybe my comic book brain ruined it, I was going to, is this supposed to be one of those, he's an unreliable narrator. And the frustration about that is, I don't think that had anything to do thematically with what this movie was.
No.
A great ambiguous ending,
Right.
whether I like it or not, and I'll tell you flat out, I do not like it, is Inception with the top that's still spinning.
Yeah.
That is an ambiguous ending, and that's a great ambiguous ending.
Right.
You know why? Because it fits thematically with that movie, which is the whole movie's about what's real and what's dreams.
Yes.
What is illusion and what's not.
Right.
This movie is not about that.
Right.
So to have those kinds of things happen, to me, doesn't mean that the rest of the movie is a question mark.
Right.
The rest of the movie is
the movie.
Arthur Fleck learns about his history,
Right.
learns that he may or may not be the son of Bruce Wayne, but apparently wasn't legally, and then was abused by his mom's boyfriends,
Yeah.
and then he kills his mom,
Right.
and then he gets a gun, puts on a suit, kills his friend, lets his little person friend go,
Right.
with, I have to admit, a joke that is very... it sucks that it's at the expense of a little person during it's supposed to be a tense scene.
Yeah.
And then he goes planning to shoot Maury and then or shoot himself on with the joke.
Yeah.
Shoots Maury, gets out, gets arrested, goes to Arkham at some point later, and then kills another psychiatrist.
Yeah.
That is the movie.
Right.
At no point does the rest of that make you go, but remember, he's hallucinating. So because if that were the case, then it would be a waste of time film.
Absolutely, and that's one point that I really don't like about this movie is that's the reason Todd Phillips did this movie, because he said that the thing that attracted me to Joker is that he's an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
Right.
So you
Right.
should have leaned in. As much as you
Right.
don't like the Inception ending or whatever,
Correct.
like however you feel about it, the entire movie should have leaned into the fact, just like we talked about months ago,
Yeah.
the fact that we don't know which truth is real.
It
And
could-
in
yeah.
this case, there was
kind
moments
of
that
pretty
were
much defines-
very real.
Yes.
Like it's
Yes.
you're telling us the story right now when you like that he's not a reliable narrator.
Correct.
It
But
doesn't
he's-
make sense.
But he's not somebody who, it's very interesting to, again,
Yeah.
make a character who's not sort of in his right mind enough to
Right.
be an unreliable narrator,
Right.
but rather, you were just off of your medication.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you don't know when things are real or not.
Right,
but what
right,
we're
right.
seeing is, I totally agree with you, Augustine. The
Yeah.
movie could have leaned into that aspect in a much stronger way.
Much
So
stronger.
that at the end it could have been this almost like Unusual Suspects moment,
Right.
a classic movie twist,
Right,
where,
right,
you know,
right.
The Sixth Sense, where you go, oh man, I have to
Right.
rewatch this movie immediately
Yeah.
to see if there's clues, to
Right.
see if
right,
what's
right.
real and what's not. What scene was
That would have
I'm
been an amazing twist at
I'm
the end.
trying to
Absolutely.
I'm trying to figure it out right now. God,
Right.
like you get to the end of Scream and you go, there were two killers.
Yeah.
Wow, well, which one was who? When I gotta
Right.
I gotta
Yeah.
rewatch it.
Right.
But at the end of this one, I went, okay, all right.
Yeah, you're like,
It's
oh,
not-
well, that happened. Okay.
There were also
cool.
people
Yeah.
who at the end were like, well, maybe this was all hallucination because we see that he's in the psychiatry, he's at Arkham basically. And I thought, hold on a second.
Yeah.
They do two things at the end of that movie that basically defines that it is not something that he imagines. One, you have a shot of all those televisions
Right,
from all
exactly.
those different news feeds.
That's real.
Slowly pulling back. That's real. Two, you see the Wayne murder.
Right. Exactly.
And he's not
Exactly.
there.
He's not in
it's
there.
It's from a third party perspective.
Right.
Correct.
It's from
Yeah.
Joe Cool's perspective.
Yeah, like if it was supposed to be
All in his head.
all in his head, then you wouldn't see that, or he would be present during that
Right,
moment.
exactly.
He would have been just like the Tim Burton movie,
Yes.
the one to go, you ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Yeah.
Boom. Did I do it? I don't know.
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
also that moment. I don't know if I'm sure people caught it where he goes into the refrigerator. Mm-hmm. Those refrigerators back in the day locked from the outside. Like
Really?
Yeah. There's no way to open it from the inside. And the reason why they now open and they don't have locks anymore is because people were dying in refrigerators. Like they would lock themselves in and they would die. Kids would die in these refrigerators.
Wow.
So he had one of those that had a lock on the outside, and I'm just like, is the whole rest of the movie did that not happen?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
what happens? They
Did
just
he
showed us
die there?
Yeah, did they show us his death, and then the
I don't
rest of
know.
the movie is just like him hallucinating before he dies in the refrigerator? I don't know.
Yeah, I think
don't
the
know.
mixed messages of the movie were the biggest, and it sucks too because like there are certain elements, especially the technical stuff, and certain things that were done in the movie that up to that point, I was like, I'm vibing with this movie.
Such a great cast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Like well directed,
Right.
right? Well shot, incredible
Right.
score, great. Which one is this to? Well shot, well directed. Well, like we were saying, the performances were great.
Yeah.
So at least if there was directing happening to get performances out of actors, that directing was good.
I would.
Directing usually makes a script into something good.
Oftentimes, yeah.
Sometimes.
But all of these things, I totally agree that all the elements were there, and I was so ready to sit down and see a rated R take on one of my favorite characters and something new coming from a place of love to really blow this out. To really, I remember when this movie came out and other comic book writers and artists were, I forget if it was like Zack Snyder, Jim Lee, not Zack Snyder, sorry, Scott Snyder, Jim Lee, I forget who it was, and I don't want to misquote anybody, but one of them was saying, I really look forward to alternate takes because sometimes they end up influencing, if it's such a strong idea, they end up influencing the core. And I was open to that, even with a character as beloved as the Joker, because he is very malleable. But all of those things being in place, I think it did bum me out that, to me, the script had moments that made me feel like this is very sort of cliched or sort of a shortcut or easy way out with the depiction of mental illness, with the order of events, with the Batman origin story being crammed in there. And then at the end of the night, the messaging in there I was frustrated with because to me, I felt as though the politics of the movie were set up to make it so that anybody from any political spectrum, whether you're a hippie, freebie lefty over here or like a straight-up fascist, could see yourself in the movie, and that frustrated me to no end. If you want to make the Joker somebody who is going to make a comment on society, which is so like eye-rolling, it's like, oh, boy. Give that straight white male who is having trouble talking to girls a strong stance. Do not cop out and have him, when Maurice deliberately asks him, do you have anything to do with this? Do you have anything to do with this?
That's right.
To do with this? There's more riots that are happening right now. You get a gun? Where'd you get that gun, Arthur? What are you doing with that gun? Did you have anything to do with these riots? At least have him be like, you know what? Yeah, eat the rich.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, we should not have wealth inequality. Right. Yeah, everything is wrong in Gotham. We've seen it in this whole movie up to this point. Right. And yes, that's my stance. I agree. The media is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. Power to the people. Boom, shoot him in the head.
And the minute he's like, I don't deal with any of that stuff.
I don't believe in any of that stuff.
And he was naive enough to not know anything. Oh, I'm Arthur. I'm like a childlike intelligence, and I doesn't know anything. And yet we get to the end of the point, and he's still right enough to be like, no, I'm not political. This movie's not political. And I was like, that's cowardly, man.
It is cowardly.
That's cowardly and it's irresponsible.
It's absolutely cowardly because it takes, we're going to get into it, it takes the perspective of like, as much as he is a trodden down individual, there were so many other individuals, people of color primarily, that were in that same boat. Correct. That didn't necessarily take that same route, and it's just like the perspective that was done to me just reminded me that like, they're trying to say rich people suck. Sure. Yeah. They're trying to say there's marginalized people in the world. Absolutely. That's nothing new. Like everything that's being presented, people are calling a masterpiece because they're shining a light on all this stuff.
But what is it that they're saying?
It's a bunch of setups with no resolve.
Right,
what
exactly.
The specific message?
There's no strong message on either of them because they're telling us rich people suck. They're telling us there's marginalized people. There's mental illness. There's more unfortunate people than ourselves out there.
And I
but
feel
they
like
don't explain any of it.
It's very surface level.
Yeah,
like you're saying.
And honestly, like I think it's true. I think it's because you have this movie being made by Todd Phillips.
Yeah.
I would say so.
Who, again, a couple of different things. You can talk about his politics. I feel like some of that has slipped into the movie, the way he feels about the world, the way he feels about comedy.
He says he hasn't, but it's in there. It's in there.
But then also, let's just put on our comic book brains for a second. The other really frustrating thing about this movie, the thing that kind of boggles my mind sometimes, where some projects are never comic book accurate enough to the fans. Some projects made by whoever, we don't like that because they don't love the source material enough. And yet here we have a guy specifically saying, the whole team sort of behind this, which I think is very interesting, is we wanted to make a real movie, not a comic book movie. That's insulting.
It is insulting.
That is insulting. That this movie, that this film,
so what are other comic book movies
every sort of level are looked at as like, well, good. We don't have to, adhere to the comic book source material. Do whatever you want. And it feels like a little bit like nowhere near to the point where Christopher Nolan had a very earnest take on his character, but it was his version, and he did exclude all the stuff he didn't like about Batman. As a comic book fan, I'm still bummed out about that, of course, but I could respect his vision.
Because it was solid all the way across.
And because it was the love of his love of the character coming through.
The essence of
the essence. And if he's like, I don't want to do Robin, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
At least it's not a situation where in Spider-Man 3, the studio forced Venom on Sam Raimi, where he's like, I don't want to do Venom, it doesn't make sense to me. And they went, you have to.
Yeah. Now you have two other villains.
The difference is Christopher Nolan had the clout to be like, no, thank you. I'm not going to do Robin. I'm not going to do Mr. Freeze. I'm not going to do that in my movies. But Todd Phillips and team and everybody sort of behind this are specifically going, the only movies that are getting greenlit are comic book movies. So we snuck this in. We wanted to make a real movie. We wanted to say something about this character, and we wanted to kind of put our own spin on it. Instead of, I think, again, the conclusions I'm drawing are that it's ultimately an anti-Batman one. This movie doesn't concern itself with making the sort of logic of Batman and the Joker make sense in a way to applaud and love Batman. It's not about the Batman mythos. It's about, we're going to get this great, gritty movie, this great, gritty performance, and wink, wink, isn't it funny that his mental illness is laughter? And that's what will explain how the Joker always laughs. It's like, okay, sure, your version of this character is not funny and doesn't think things are funny. He just has a condition. So it feels a little bit like it's people sort of, again, outsiders looking in and going, well, I'm going to make this silly thing for kids like a real serious thing. And that, I always feel like, man, that's kind of insulting, man, that's part of the whole drive, and that was part of the PR machine and doing the publicity was like, well, you know, it wasn't about, well, we drew from this specific, you know, source and we knew that we could fit this. This is what I love about the character. It just was all their sort of version of this is an original take. And to me, I feel like it doesn't work with the Joker thing mapped over it. It only works with if it's an original thing. And a lot of people are saying, I wish that the Joker stuff, it wasn't called Joker, because then it would be getting unanimous praise. And I disagree with that even. And I go, I think that if this movie was not Joker, but it was about a character named Arthur Fleck who ends up shooting Robert De Niro at the end of the head at the end of this movie, that so many things about this movie would be different. And the only reason that they exist in this version of the movie is because they are Joker things. That they, you know, his clown job, again, the laughter aspect of it, a bunch of different things that I feel like we're sort of outsiders looking in and going, this is what we understand this thing to be, so we're going to sort of sprinkle it through, and then, of course, got to go to Arkham at some point, and then, of course, you know, we got to visit the Waynes at some point, and he's going to, and yeah, okay, I'll leave it at that. But there's a lot of great movies about a descent into madness. A descent into I've had it up to here. Whether it's falling down or even something like De Niro in Taxi Driver. That movie starts with you thinking this guy's okay. He's a little weird, and then by the end of it, you're like, this guy's fucked. But this movie opens with him doing this. And you're like, okay, he's gone.
Clearly, he's already as deep as he can go.
Right at the beginning, it's not a story that is like Arthur's just like one of us, and then he had one bad day, just like the Joker, and we're going to show you, you know, what happens from that point to that point. He effectively stays the same, but he just like learns information, and to him that justifies his behavior, you know, or he like accidentally kills people and then is like, and then dances in a bathroom,
and then he ends up liking it,
which I didn't buy because I'm like, you don't like, I don't know.
You got anything?
I think Hector kind of said it all at this point.
I don't know.
I don't think this movie's a masterpiece.
No.
This movie was...
Also, on that topic, why is there this, like, need for every superhero movie to be a masterpiece? It can just be a good movie.
I don't know, man.
I really like Avengers Endgame. And I know when it came out, I was really hyped on it, but I'm very aware of the fact it's not some masterpiece of cinema.
No, it's a nice culmination.
Yeah, it's like a really good superhero comic book adaptation.
It's a nice payoff.
And a nice like bow on top of the Marvel.
Yes, perfect payoff for this 10 years of movies. It's not a masterpiece at all because rewatching, I'm like, oh yeah, there's some bits in here that could have been edited out, you know. But this movie was way overhyped. 100% overhyped,
and I'm kind of sad about that.
It had great marketing campaign.
It did,
yes,
it worked.
The trailers were great.
Listen, that first trailer that we saw with Arthur Fleck and the colors and all that stuff, and then the soundtrack going, I'm like, this is interesting. It sounds like it has something to say. But at the end of the day, all those words are kind of muddled and it's kind of all over the place. I'm not gonna say I dislike this movie too because they did some really cool stuff technically. The movie's beautiful. Like, I thought I was really going to like that stair scene. We didn't even talk about the stair scene, by the way. I thought I was really going to like the stair scene. but they fucked that up.
In the trailer,
Really.
it's awesome.
In the trailer,
just-
it's awesome. And if the music would have been off the whole time, in my head, I kind of turned the music off. But I'm like, this is a great shot. I love all the snow. I love all that stuff that they were doing. But the fact that they started off with jock jams. They started off with jock jams. And then in a weird place, halfway down the stairs, the song changes. Like, the song goes quiet, and then another song starts. I'm like, what is this choice? Like, I don't clearly don't understand the
artistry
decision that was
at
made
work.
here. Oh yeah, just changing the radio
Yeah, I
dial,
guess
or
so.
just hitting.
Go to
next on-
station 2, please.
Hitting next on Spotify.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
It's like somebody's song ended and the next song played on Spotify.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately at the end, I didn't dislike this movie either. To me, I was just mostly frustrated that they put all these themes and all this messaging out there, and it never resolves into anything.
No.
To me, biggest thing for me is you should have just not put the Wayne murder in there.
That was it.
And just let Joker be the Joker.
Yeah.
If you're not planning on making a sequel, what the hell's the point of putting it in there anyway?
There's
It's
no
like,
point.
we don't need a wink. We know what happens.
right.
We can, in our mind, imagine that, in some future, Batman and Joker will fight. And
exactly.
But also, you didn't really build a character that I think, realistically, based on the real world you're trying to set this in, this Joker could not take on Batman.
No,
even if Batman wasn't as strong as he traditionally is in the
But that's the
comic
thing.
books
They
and
set
shows.
up the most traditional Batman origin ever.
Yeah.
Like, that is word for word giving us the Batman, the world's greatest detective, martial arts master, billionaire, fit-ass motherfucker, like, everything.
Those seeds were planted.
Right, exactly. All that was planted, and it took me completely out of the movie.
Yeah, and also, maybe people will be upset about this, but it feels like Todd Phillips, instead of just trying to make a movie that takes all the best elements of the Joker and figuring out a way of like a real descent into madness story, it was like, well, let's take Taxi Driver and King of Comedy, let's sandwich it together and skin it with DC's Joker, and that'll be our movie. And I was like, well,
that's what it felt like.
You made an imitation of Scorsese, but you're not Scorsese, Todd Phillips.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I don't think he's a bad director. I like Hangover. I
There's
like
only
some
one
of his other movies.
Scorsese, and there's
but like,
Scorsese.
if you're gonna try to make a Scorsese movie, just get Scorsese to make the movie.
Right.
So I don't know, but I think because technically it looks really nice and it's got all those great elements that we talked about at the top.
Yeah.
I don't hate the movie. I was just a little bummed because I loved the trailers. Everyone hyped it up. And that it was all these things, and it was a 5-star, and the movie ended, and I kind of went, it's fine.
It's okay.
It's okay. And if people ask me, like, would you recommend it? Yeah. If you want to see something, if you want to see, like, a take on the Joker, I don't even want to say unique, but just a take on the Joker and a little flavor of what this Elseworld universe could turn into, then I think it's really cool. Do I still want DC and Warner Brothers to take a chance and make other Elseworld stories? Yes.
Yeah,
I'm up for it.
Same.
I'm really up for it.
Same.
Right.
I think that the best Elseworlds are the ones that can take a core sort of ideal or message or a lesson from a character of the mythos and like poured it into a different setting.
Yeah.
And that setting will just enhance that idea, like something like a Superman Red Sun. What if Kal-El landed in Russia?
Yeah.
That kind of, in Soviet Russia, that kind of like, wow, let's really examine, is it just he was raised by the Kents? Is he a good guy at heart? What can that story be?
Right.
That's what I think is at its best. I would have loved it. Overall thoughts is I would have loved Joker if the script was just took on a really a much stronger message, and if it had
and maybe one or two, but not five.
And if it tried less to be comic book and more to be its own sort of thing, and if it took the mental illness, I think, in a more serious and realistic way, where it actually described specifics about it and did that, I think it would have served it better. Or, again, you go the opposite. Make them super effing competent. And you're seeing a movie about...
He's playing everyone.
A guy who's choosing to do this.
I think one of the best villains ever is Magneto. I think that the fact that he debuted in the 60s and he was created by two Jewish guys and he was a survivor of the Holocaust is the type of villain where you go, I get it. I don't agree with you, but I get it. And I feel like you could very easily do that with Joker to have people basically recoiling at the fact that they're rooting for him. Do you know what I mean? And this, I think, movie decided not to do that. And the most frustrating thing about this whole thing is that I very sort of calmly was trying to collect my thoughts about this. I love the Joker. I love the comic book Joker. I love the history. And I described this stuff on the internet, and I got a lot of great responses from people who disagreed with me, and they were like, hey, I really liked what you said. I totally understood what your points, and I can respect where you're coming from. I disagreed entirely, but I made sure to mention me personally. Like, this was my own personal opinion on it, and this is how I felt. And a big part of it is just because I was raised on the Joker. And the frustrating thing about this movie is that it attracted a section of people that are like really bad, that have tagged me in harassing stuff online, and I'm like, all right.
It's like, what makes you any better than that character?
If this movie doesn't have any kind of mixed messages, why is it attracting this sort of audience?
Right.
And it was frustrating that the sort of powers that be that have this power and responsibility of this character, of this franchise, of this IP, Batman and characters, would sort of give something like this to a Todd Phillips and be like, do your own thing, because ultimately it's going to be something that might attract not the best, group.
Yeah.
And again, it's like you already know that this fandom is so like good and bad and up and down and so passionate.
Right.
I'm not saying like do like a play it safe Joker movie. I'm saying like make your stance clear.
Yeah.
And instead, I have had some experience with like being harassed and tagged and stuff with like some really horrendous language.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I guess this movie didn't teach any lessons.
No,
didn't
no,
change any.
It didn't
change any people, and there's always going to be that. But again, it's specifically like something like Parasite being released in the United States.
Right.
I don't have any fear of that attracting that, because that type of movie is not going to get this type of audience, or doesn't have this built-in thing. But a comic book movie like this does, and it's a bummer that I have seen like ugliness attached to it. So I would say, if you love this movie, awesome. Love the movie. Keep loving the movie.
Right.
Talk about the movie. Talk about its inspirations. Go back and watch those older movies. Talk about everything involved in it. Every level of the production.
If this movie gets more people to watch Taxi Driver and King of Comedy, great.
Absolutely.
Great.
You should watch those movies.
But spark something.
I
like
hope
that,
I hope that you do not feel that you are entitled to like be shitty to people.
Yeah.
If
they don't like something that you do.
Which you should be able to
look in 2019. That should be a given. If someone likes something that you don't like, there's no reason for you to come after them and tell them they're a terrible fucking human being for not liking the same thing you do.
That's the shittiest kind of person.
But apparently, sometimes when I look into the comments of some of our videos, I always wonder, how have people still not gotten that? Because we're doing a review of this movie, and we're not attacking any one person's specific like or dislike about the movie. It's like, if you like it, great. I'm happy for you. If you didn't like it, I'm sorry that you didn't enjoy the movie and you feel like you wasted 2 hours of your life.
Right.
I feel about it a certain way. You do, and so do you.
Right.
And we move on.
Yep. That's exactly.
it.
We give our opinions. That this is what we believe.
Yeah.
And that's that. We like Adam said, we are not attacking anybody who really, really loves this movie. What does Zach always say? Don't yuck people, or don't
yuck people's yum.
Don't yuck people's yum.
Yeah.
Like, if you like the movie, more power to you. Like, go and study film and realize why you like this kind of movie. Don't just take the bad stuff from it and run with that.
And read lots of reviews about this movie.
Right.
If you do love it, read lots of reviews, positive and negative.
Yep.
Read a bunch of stuff. Read it, to be able to look at it from every angle. I don't know. It sucks. It's going to sound like I'm like complaining, like because I had disliked the film and I expressed why, and now I'm trying to be like, don't be mean to me. It's YouTube. You're going to do whatever you want.
At the same time, though, it's like at the same time, it's frustrating because the whole point of like why we started doing this was to like talk about the things that we love, why we love these characters, how we like those characters portrayed and represented, and if the creators choose to deviate from certain things, great. How do you justify it or sell it to me in a way where I'm like, oh yeah, you changed this thing about this character, but the essence of the character and where the character ends up is still intact. So I'm okay with you doing something differently as long as that like core thing that makes Batman, Joker, Superman is there, and I'm on board.
Yeah, agreed 100%. Wait, you guys started doing this because you wanted to talk about movies? I just wanted to hang out with you guys.
Aww.
I mean, that was the cherry on top. So I'm okay with that.
I just wanted to have more sushi nights, that's all.
¿Por qué no los dos?
Why not both?
Why not both?
I'll translate.
Oh my God, so good. But guys, let us know what you thought about the Joker in the comments. I'm sure they're going to be so pleasant.
It's okay, just let them.
I know we have some great people in the community who are very open to conversation, and sometimes they like the things that we do, sometimes they don't. That's the whole point. My biggest problem when people make the comment of like, well, it's an open comment section, I should be able to say what I want. If you call people horrible, horrendous names, no one's going to want to talk to you because they're just going to feel like you're just pounding them to the ground all the time. And like, I want to have fun open conversations,
dialogue,
things that you liked, didn't like, where we can agree to disagree. Like that to me is the whole point about talking about movies and stuff that we're passionate about. Like I love the Halloween franchise. I know there's a lot of people who think it's a piece of trash. That's fine. Same thing with all those comments that like Scorsese and Coppola make about Marvel movies. People get so upset about it, and I'm like, that's fine.
Let them think what they want to think. I used to think that the Fast and Furious movies were terrible, guys. I used to think that, remember? I used to think that? Yeah, exactly.
I just think it's a part of getting older is that you stop caring about what others think about what you like.
Oh, 150,000%.
And when I was younger, I definitely did look for validation in different places.
We all did,
including the internet. And now I'm like, dude, I don't give a crap if anybody.
I don't give a rat's
Other than the people that I care about. I'll be honest. It'll bum me out if like my significant other like doesn't like Hot Rod. Like those are the real deal breakers. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
If my significant other is somebody who's like, oh, I like Iron Man more than Captain America, then I'm like, okay, we got to talk.
If your significant other was like, I don't like any kind of comic books whatsoever, that's a problem. That's a problem.
Deal broken. Deal
broke. Yeah.
Broke. Yeah. But guys, let us know in the comments below what you thought about this movie, any references that we might have missed. Hit us up on social media. Give us all your thoughts. And, we've got a whole lot more stuff to do. So we're going to get to recording our Titans podcast, our commentaries for Scott Pilgrim and Coco. And look for those on Patreon. And we'll see you next week.
It's going to be a long night.
Bye.